And we say, ooh.
Here's something that'll haunt you. An entire genre can vanish, and the legends who built it can disappear with it. R&B didn't just fade, it was erased, rebranded, absorbed into pop until artists like Justin Bieber and Kehlani argued over who had the last #1 R&B album. Think about that. Pop singers claiming R&B victories while the actual R&B royalty died broke, forgotten, or worse. Today, we're diving into the Jones Girls, three blood sisters whose voices melted together like they shared one soul, who gave us classics that soundtracked millions of lives, and whose story ended in tragedy so brutal it'll make you question everything about fame. If you love uncovering hidden legends like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to Legends Underrated, because stories like theirs deserve to be remembered. Let's rewind to Detroit in the 1950s, where gospel music wasn't just Sunday morning. It was survival, identity, rebellion wrapped in hymns. Mary Fraser Jones stood in front of RCA Records on the exact same day Little Richard signed his contract. She became the first black gospel singer on that label, her voice carrying the weight of every ancestor who sang in chains, in fields, in churches that doubled as freedom schools. She didn't know it yet, but her three daughters, Shirley, Brenda, and Valerie, would inherit something more powerful than her record deal. They'd inherit her gift. Shirley arrived first in 1953, then Brenda in 1954, then baby Valerie in 1956. By the time they could walk, Mary had them singing, not for fun, not for cute family videos. She trained them with military precision, drilling harmonies until their voices didn't just blend. They became one instrument with three parts. She knew what the streets could do to young black girls in Detroit. She knew about the boys, the drugs, the dreams that died on corners. So she weaponized music every day after school, rehearsal, every weekend, performances. Mary dragged them across Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, calling the act Mary Fraser Jones and the Jones Sisters, performing at churches where they shared stages with groups that would become legends themselves, the Winans, the Clark Sisters. But here's the thing about growing up in Detroit when Motown was the empire next door. You couldn't escape secular music. Diana Ross and the Supremes weren't just idols. They were proof that little black girls from the neighborhood could become royalty. When the Jones Sisters hit their early teens, something shifted. Gospel felt like a cage. They started sneaking secular records, letting Motown's smooth production seep into their DNA. That's when they met a woman with a small recording studio who saw dollar signs in their harmonies. She approached Mary with a proposition. "Let me record some R&B tracks with your girls." Mary hesitated. Gospel was sacred, and crossing over felt like betrayal. But talent this rare doesn't stay hidden. The tracks got local buzz, enough to attract McKinley Jackson, a producer who knew gold when he heard it. He had one goal: get these girls in front of Holland Dozier Holland. If you don't know those names, let me educate you. Holland Dozier Holland wrote and produced almost every Motown mega hit you've ever loved. Where Did Our Love Go? Baby Love. Stop. In the Name of Love for the Supremes. I Can't Help Myself for the Four Tops. Heat Wave for Martha and the Vandellas. But by the late 60s, they'd had a catastrophic fallout with Berry Gordy over money, because it's always about money, and they walked away from Motown to start their own labels, Invictus and Hot Wax Records. They needed background singers for their new artists, Freda Payne and Honey Cone. The Jones Sisters became those voices behind the voices. They released a few singles: Come Back, You're the Only Bargain I've Got, Taste of the Honey, but nothing exploded. Still, everyone in the industry whispered about them. Curtis Mayfield heard them doing background for his group, The Impressions, and immediately signed them to his label, Curtom Records. They cut entire albums with Curtis, singles like If You Don't Love Me No More. But here's the gut punch. Curtis never released the full album. Imagine pouring your soul into music that just sits in a vault. But the industry kept using them. Aretha Franklin, Tower of Power, Betty Everett. They were the secret sauce in everyone else's success, always in the shadows. Then came the call that changed everything. Their manager told them Diana Ross needed backup singers for her London tour. They auditioned. Diana heard about 4 notes and hired them on the spot. But Diana wasn't stupid. She knew what she had. These weren't just backup singers. They were competition waiting to happen. And she was right. One night in Philadelphia, 2 men sat in the audience barely paying attention to Diana Ross. Gamble and Huff, the architects of the Philly soul sound, the masterminds behind the OJs, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, Teddy Pendergrass, Patti LaBelle, were hunting for a female group after their own act, The 3 Degrees, imploded over creative differences. They watched Diana strut and sing, but their eyes stayed locked on the three women harmonizing behind her. When Diana went backstage to change costumes, she'd let the Jones sisters take the spotlight. That's when Gamble and Huff knew. After the show, they didn't waste time. Contract on the table. We want you. One condition, you're not the Jones sisters anymore. You're the Jones girls. It was 1979, and everything was about to explode. Their self-titled debut album dropped like a bomb. You're Gonna Make Me Love Somebody Else hit number 5 on the soul charts, number 12 on the disco chart, number 38 on the Billboard Hot 100. Over 1 million copies sold. The album went gold. Decades later, Jay-Z would sample that exact track for The City Is Mine on his In My Lifetime volume. One album introducing a whole new generation to their genius, but that album wasn't just one hit. Who Can I Run To became an anthem. Escape would cover it years later, but they couldn't touch the original. And This Feeling's Killing Me? Brenda sang lead on that one, and it ripped your heart out and handed it back bleeding. In 1980, they released At Peace with Woman, which hit number 7 on the soul album charts. I Just Love the Man peaked at number 9 on the soul charts, and if you watched House Party 3, you heard Immature remake it for the wedding scene at the end while Bernie Mac kissed that stripper. Then came 1981 and Get As Much Love As You Can, featuring Nights Over Egypt, a song so smooth, so hypnotic, it became one of those tracks that define an era. If you were alive in the early 80s, you knew that beat. You felt it in your bones. Stories like these are why I built Legends Underrated. So make sure to subscribe for more untold tales, because what happens next will break your heart. But here's where the dream starts cracking. Money. It always comes down to money. The Jones Girls and Gamble and Huff started clashing over royalties, publishing rights, control. Philadelphia International Records was going through its own internal chaos. When their contract expired, the sisters walked. They signed with RCA Records and released On Target, working with Luther Vandross's writer, Fonzie Thornton. But the sound was different, too different. Fans didn't know what to make of it. Then Gamble and Huff did something vicious. They released an album of old, unreleased Jones Girls material at the exact same time, titled Keep It Coming. 2 albums, same group, different labels. The fans were confused, the market was split, and the old album outsold the new one. It was sabotage, intentional or not. The Jones Girls fractured. Brenda moved to Atlanta. Valerie enrolled in college. Shirley stayed in the game, going back to Gamble and Huff for a solo deal. In 1986, she released Always in the Mood, and Do You Get Enough Love hit number 1 on the R&B charts for 2 weeks. The album did huge numbers overseas, especially in the UK, where the Jones Girls had always been worshipped. But the group? Done. In 1992, they tried a reunion, releasing Coming Back in the UK with producer Jazzy B. But something was deeply wrong. A tour organizer named Graham Jones later wrote a book, Last Shop Standing, Whatever Happened to Record Shops, where he called the Jones Girls the most dysfunctional group in soul music. He described constant fighting, chaos, dysfunction. He said Brenda had a drinking problem. Valerie was addicted to pills. Only Shirley seemed to hold it together, but even she couldn't save them from themselves. People love to judge, but they don't understand what the industry does to you. The pressure, the betrayal, the way fame eats you alive from the inside. These women gave everything, and the industry chewed them up. Then, on December 2nd, 2001, Valerie Jones died. She was only 45. The official cause was listed as unknown, but whispers said alcoholism, depression. The baby sister, the one with the angel voice, gone. The family was shattered. Shirley kept performing. Brenda tried to rebuild her life, working as a traveling nurse, raising her granddaughter and Valerie's son. But in 2013, Brenda became homeless. A woman who once had gold records ended up in a shelter until a friend rescued her, moving her to a hotel, then finally to a home with her daughter and granddaughter. She even released music in London that charted on the soul charts. She was fighting. She was surviving. Then April 3rd, 2017. Brenda was visiting her daughter in Wilmington, Delaware. She tried to cross the street. Multiple cars hit her. She died at the scene, 62 years old. Two sisters gone. Only Shirley remains, still performing, still doing interviews, still keeping the Jones girls' name alive. She works with her son and nephew now. She mentioned in an interview that an unsung episode is coming, that the real story will finally be told. Maybe she'll write a book, maybe there'll be a movie. But here's the question that should haunt you. How does a group this talented, this important, end up with two members dead and one fighting to keep their memory from vanishing completely? The Jones Girls gave us the soundtrack to love, heartbreak, joy, pain. Their voices were supernatural, but the industry that profited from their genius didn't protect them. It used them up and moved on. So now it's on us. Stream their music, share their story, make sure the next generation knows who the Jones Girls were, because legends shouldn't die twice, once in body and again in memory. What's the most underrated R&B group you think deserves more recognition? Drop it in the comments, and if you never want to miss stories like this, subscribe to Legends Underrated today.